But I have to say now, dare I say it, forgive me, you're an artist, you're a great artist. I remember it and I love it, and I love you forever. Thank you.
There's a kind of love in Hollywood that isn't written in scripts, that doesn't end with wedding bells or fade with the credits. It lingers in the shadows of what could have been. And between Diane Keaton and Al Pacino, two titans of cinema, it was exactly that. Not just a romance, but an echo. An unfinished song that keeps playing decades later. Their story was never clean, never final. It wasn't about drama or betrayal. It was about two people who could never meet each other fully, despite their hearts knowing exactly where to go. This wasn't some tabloid romance. It was a quiet storm that lasted over 20 years. Diane Keaton, fierce, brilliant, quirky, she didn't wait for love to arrive. She reached for it. She even proposed to Pacino. And yet, he walked away. No answer, no goodbye, just vanished. The man with the haunted eyes and a restless soul couldn't stay still long enough to say yes. They had once shared everything: space, silence, pain. But in the end, they were left with a strange, lingering friendship and memories that neither could quite let go of. Let's rewind to where it all began. Diane wasn't born into glitz or glamour. She was raised in a conservative Catholic household in sunny Los Angeles. Her father, an engineer. Her mother, Dorothy, a small-town pageant queen who shelved her dreams to become a homemaker. Diane watched her mother glow in memories, but fade in reality, and vowed she'd never let that be her future. From the very start, Diane rebelled against the norm. She was bold, driven, and unapologetically herself. Men didn't quite know what to make of her, but beneath the tough, offbeat exterior was a girl who wanted what her mother never got: a love that didn't vanish, a partner who would stay, not just visit. Al Pacino's world couldn't have been more different. He grew up in the gritty corners of East Harlem and the Bronx, in a small, struggling Italian-American home. His father left when he was barely 2. His mother, Rose, worked tirelessly to keep the lights on. Pacino found comfort not in family dinners, but in the flicker of black and white films, the smell of worn theater seats, and the adrenaline of applause. Acting wasn't just a passion, it was survival. He dropped out of school, took odd jobs, slept on benches, delivered newspapers. But every role he played was another breath of air. For Pacino, love was always second to freedom. He feared losing it, and love to him always looked like a cage. And then they met. It was 1971. The Godfather was still just a script, not yet a cinematic legend. Diane, then a rising comic actress, was cast as Kay, Michael Corleone's conscience. Al was a stage actor on the verge of being fired. Hollywood wasn't sure about him. He was quiet, awkward, unpolished. Producers wanted him out. But Diane saw something else. And when their eyes met on set, something unspoken passed between them. Not flirtation, recognition. As if two lonely souls had finally found someone who understood silence. Here's the part that twists the heart. Despite the connection, they were never in sync. Diane was ready. She wanted forever. Pacino was scared of forever. One day, she asked him to marry her, and instead of an answer, she got silence. He disappeared. Not dramatically, but painfully, quietly. And here's where it gets even more haunting. At a tribute event years later, Diane took the mic and said to Pacino, "You're an artist, a great artist. I love you forever." She wasn't acting. She was speaking from the place where stories and reality blur. A confession that felt like closure, but somehow wasn't. How many people get to hear the words, "I love you forever," and still not be able to hold on to it. Their story isn't a Hollywood fairy tale. It's a lesson. A reminder that sometimes timing ruins everything. That two people can be perfect for each other, but not at the same time. That love doesn't always look like a wedding. It can look like a tribute speech decades later. It can look like an old photo, a smile on the red carpet, a name that still makes your voice tremble. And here's the hook that stings the most. What if they were each other's greatest love, and they just let it slip away? There are connections that don't need words. They echo in glances, linger in silence, and grow stronger in absence. That's what existed between Diane Keaton and Al Pacino, an unspoken pull that neither time nor distance could fully sever. From the moment their eyes locked on the set of The Godfather, something sparked. Diane later confessed she was smitten instantly. His restless energy, unpredictable charm, and that haunting, boyish mystery. "I was crazy about him," she admitted. "He was chaos wrapped in charm. A man who seemed to carry both magic and melancholy in his voice." Al, as always, remained mostly silent. He never publicly proclaimed love, never confirmed what the world could see glowing beneath the surface. But those who stood beside them, friends, castmates, and directors, knew better. There was something deeper than a co-star connection. It was a quiet bond neither of them could break, though they would try, again and again. It wasn't fame that held them. It was something far more fragile, something dangerously intimate. Their romance evolved like a hidden novel, full of pauses, rewrites, and unexpected plot twists. Throughout the 70s, Diane and Al fell into a rhythm. Together, apart, together again. Love turned to silence, silence to longing, and longing to reunions that never quite fixed what was broken. And yet, she waited. Not for weeks or months, but for over 20 years. A love like that doesn't just fade, it transforms into something else, something quieter, but far more powerful. What made this relationship unlike any other Hollywood tale was its lack of spectacle. No flashy red carpet moments, no grand declarations in the press. Their love unfolded in whispers and glances. But behind those whispers was a storm. And Diane, with all her poise and quiet strength, was often the eye of it. While the world applauded her roles in iconic films and admired her independence, few realized she was nursing a wound that never healed. The Godfathers, she once said, were all about one thing: Al. It wasn't just a movie, it was her story, played out in front of the world. Al, meanwhile, continued his restless search. His romances flickered and vanished. He was brilliant but broken, loyal yet unreachable. Diane had relationships too. Woody Allen, Warren Beatty, even Mel Gibson. But Al was the echo that never left. He was her unfinished sentence. She was his unanswered question. The pivotal moment came in the late 80s, during the filming of The Godfather Part 3 in Rome. They were staying in the same villa. The crew whispered. This was it. After decades of near misses, it felt like the stars had aligned. Diane made her final move, marriage or goodbye. She put everything on the line. And Al? He stayed silent. No proposal, no promise. Just the same impenetrable stillness that had followed him his whole life. That silence crushed her. She spiraled into therapy. Her father was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And as her world cracked, Al walked away without a sound. I wanted him to love me the way I loved him, she later said. But sometimes, loving too much pushes people further away. And that's exactly what happened. While Diane tried to build a future, Al was still hiding in the past. If their love had a soundtrack, it would be a solo, just one voice playing waiting for a harmony that never comes. Diane kept stepping forward. Al kept standing still. And in that cruel imbalance, a deep sadness was born. Diane once called him a brilliant lost soul, a man full of fire and fragility. She described him as breathtaking, wise, foolish, and completely impossible to hold on to. And behind that romance was a fortune, a lifestyle shaped not just by art, but by power and money. Al Pacino, the enigma of cinema, built an empire. With a net worth exceeding $120 million, his real estate portfolio includes properties in Beverly Hills and New York, each crafted with old-world elegance and guarded privacy. He's driven vintage Rolls-Royces and high-performance Audis, vehicles as classic and complex as the man himself. He's been seen with luxury watches, like the Patek Philippe Nautilus and the Rolex Submariner, timeless, bold, and always understated. But Al never lived like a typical star. He avoided excess, never chased flash, and spent most of his wealth on privacy. His investments were smart, conservative. Instead of launching product lines or reality shows, he stayed focused on craft, on theater, independent cinema, and the quiet kind of wealth that doesn't need applause. He reportedly carried comprehensive insurance policies, covering not just health and life, but assets, film delays, and career disruptions. Al Pacino didn't just play the game. He learned how to protect his legacy without ever selling it. The financial lesson buried beneath his story? Keep your circle tight, prioritize privacy, and invest in what can't be taken from you: your skills, your art, your mind. Al avoided the fame traps that ensnared many of his peers. He didn't spend to impress. He spent to survive. That's how you stay relevant without burning out. That's how you age with dignity in an industry built on youth. And what about Diane? She chose differently. With an estimated net worth of $100 million, she poured her wealth into creativity, producing, directing, and collecting rare architectural homes in Los Angeles. She's been seen in elegant yet quirky fashion, embracing her own style over trends. She too wears her wealth lightly, preferring experience over extravagance, legacy over limelight. If there's a takeaway in their story, it's this: even the greatest love can falter in the face of fear. Even two icons, worshipped by millions, can quietly shatter each other's hearts. They taught us that not all endings are loud. Some just drift into memory. Diane Keaton once said, "I always picked the wrong guys." But maybe it wasn't just that. Maybe it was the way she loved, with a kind of unfiltered intensity that scared people away. She admitted she wasn't built for traditional love. No nurturing instinct, no desire to be the perfect partner. But the truth is, it wasn't her flaws that left scars. It was her devotion. Loving too deeply in a world that didn't know what to do with that kind of emotion. That's what haunted her. And that's what made her unforgettable. Al Pacino? He never married. Not once. 4 children, 3 different women, but never a ring, never a vow. Friends whispered that he feared losing control, feared the trap of domesticity. But maybe the real fear was something deeper. Maybe he knew he wasn't capable of loving in a way that was fair, or normal, or safe. Their 20-year dance was more than a romance. It was a war between freedom and connection. This wasn't just another Hollywood breakup. Their story echoed something bigger. A generational ache. The heartbreak that happens when 2 extraordinary people try to fit into something ordinary. Diane Keaton and Al Pacino didn't fail because they didn't love each other. They failed because love alone wasn't enough. In their world, filled with awards, scripts, characters, and crowds, there was never room for compromise. Diane grew up in a house where her mother had dreams but never lived them out. That shadow of unfulfilled ambition followed her. It pushed her to chase greatness in everything: her art, her identity, her independence. She feared settling, feared being tamed, and yet craved a love that would ground her. That contradiction lived in every line she spoke on screen. Pacino, on the other hand, was carved by the streets of the Bronx. No father, no luxury. Just a boy running wild with theater scripts in hand, chasing stages that didn't want him. For him, love was always something distant, something that required giving up the one thing he had fought hardest to keep: his freedom. He didn't fear Diane. He feared what she represented, a world where he might have to stay. In their romance, she dreamed of building a home. He dreamed of disappearing into his art. And that was the quiet tragedy. Diane fell in love with the soul she wanted to save. Pacino appreciated her deeply, but never asked her to stay. He never said, "I'll change." Art was the spark that brought them together, but it was also the fire that kept them apart. Their obsession with stories, with performance, with creating something eternal, meant their relationship became the one thing they couldn't control. Diane embraced her solitude and turned it into strength. She became a symbol of fierce womanhood, unapologetically single, wildly successful, and deeply human. Pacino retreated further into his craft. The roles got darker, more intense. He aged into the shadows, a man who never fully gave himself to anyone. He fathered children, but never built a family in the traditional sense. And perhaps that was always his destiny: to belong to the screen, not the world. Diane once confessed she loved Al not just for who he was, but for the ache he carried, the lost child inside the legend. But loving someone's pain doesn't guarantee they'll stay. Pacino admired Diane, but never reached the moment where love outweighed self-preservation. So they drifted, not with bitterness, but with a kind of silent acceptance. Each chose their own road, and neither looked back with anger. Diane became a mother on her own terms, adopting in her 50s. She never needed anyone to validate her. She built a legacy without a last name attached to hers. And Al? He remained elusive, distant, occasionally tender, but never rooted. Tell us what you think in the comments, because sometimes the most unforgettable stories are the ones that never found their ending. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest kind of love is the one we carry with us,